Welcome to the Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community, a space where justice meets action and community voices rise. Each episode, we bring you stories from the front lines, changemakers, disruptors, and everyday heroes who are building a more just, equitable, and liberated world. This is more than a podcast. It's a call to listen, learn, and move together. You were just listening to music from the incredibly talented Stephen Kong. You can find him on Spotify and Bandcamp. Today we have with us Adriene Caldwell. Adriene Caldwell is an author and advocate from Houston, Texas. Her memoir, Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines, traces the quiet aftermath of childhood trauma and the long arc of healing. Through writing, talks, and unbrokencaldwell.com, she champions hope, resilience, and storytelling as tools for recovery. Well, hi, Adriene. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really grateful for you. I think, for you being here. I think you have such a powerful story to share, and I can't wait to hear more about that and just how you've continued to inspire other people. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Denise. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you for having me and for giving a platform for voices like mine. So thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you for saying that. And I think it's really important for us to tell our stories and just continue sharing our voices. But just for starting off, for listeners who are just meeting you, can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about what led you to write Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I'm Adriene Caldwell. I am the author of Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines. It's the story of my life from early childhood to early 20s. And during this time, and this is where I introduced the trigger warnings, I was either the witness to or the victim of the sexual assault of a young girl, the drowning death of a child, emotional and physical abuse, extreme poverty, mental illness, horrifically abusive foster care, homelessness, bulimia, drug and alcohol addiction, pedophilia, death, suicide, and incest. So I can relate to many, many people. And as we were discussing before this show, generational trauma and mental illness is something that I speak about often. So
no, thank you so much for sharing. And, I'm sorry that you had to experience all of that too. But, I think that the title itself, Unbroken, is extremely powerful. So what does that word mean to you today?
Absolutely. I actually include the definition in the book.
Okay.
It's that important to me. And I like to think of a wild horse, that you cannot ride a wild horse until its spirit is broken. So the definition, unbroken, so not fit for service or duty. I love that.
Wow.
That although what I have endured in my life has been significant and beyond difficult, it did not break me. It came close many, many times, but it did not break me.
Right. No, thank you for sharing that. And what do you feel gave you that resilience to keep overcoming just all this adversity that you've had throughout your life?
So it was actually an experience that I had. My last suicide attempt, which is actually the opening of my book. I open with the gun to my temple.
Oh, wow.
And I do pull the trigger twice. Okay. And that evening in the psychiatric ward of the hospital, because I was committed for the mandatory hold because I did attempt to kill myself. I had an experience where this feeling just came over me, where all of a sudden I was just at peace. I was very calm, very serene, And it was at that point that I realized that I was not going to be let go from this earth until I had fulfilled my purpose, whatever that purpose might be.
Mhm.
And from that point forward, I knew that that was my last suicide attempt. I didn't try again because I knew there was a reason for me to be here. Now, it didn't come with like a memo saying, do this, this, and
Yeah.
this. But I've, I've, from that point forward is
Mhm.
where I really had the strength and the resilience and the sense of purpose.
Wow, and
So
wow, that's really wonderful. And yeah, just I know that we just met, but just want to say, I'm so glad that you're still here, have like your story to share and everything. And I think what you say is really powerful too. Like, do you feel like you're getting any closer to understanding what your purpose is? Like, has that become more clear, or is this something that you're still trying to figure out?
I'm still trying to figure out.
Okay.
I spent the first half of my life not being a very good person.
Okay.
And I've spent the second half of my life really trying to make up for that because I have hurt people and I've done awful things. And I'm trying to make up that deficit by just being the best person that I can. And I don't always succeed. I fail regularly, but just trying to be kind, trying to be gentle and understanding with other people
Hmm.
and to give them grace and allowance that oftentimes I myself was not given.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
okay. No, thank you for sharing that. And as you mentioned earlier, your memoir explores the quiet aftermath of childhood trauma. So what inspired you to tell that story right now? And like what made you decide to put your experiences on in writing? And, did it take like courage for you to like release this in such like a public platform as well? Yeah, I'd love to hear more about it.
oh, I'm terrified.
Okay.
I'm terrified
Yeah.
of the eventual judgment that's going to come
Uh-huh.
because of those bad things that I mentioned, that I've done. But writing Unbroken was really the next step in my evolution.
Okay.
Um, I was a ward of the state. I was in foster care from the time
Hmm.
I was 12 years old until I turned 18. I, graduated out of the system.
Uh-huh.
And when I was about 20, I filled out the form and I asked for my case file.
Hmm.
And I received from Children's Protective Services this giant box with these two huge stacks of paper, basically everything that had ever been written about me.
Hmm.
Um, Psychiatric evaluations, therapist reports, social worker, caseworker notes, how I came into the system, the
Yeah.
experiences. And I had this box under my couch for the last 20 years. And every
Okay.
few years, I would try to go through it
Uh-huh.
and get completely overwhelmed and triggered and just put the lid back on, put it back under the couch. That's where it lives, under the couch.
Okay.
And I finally, at 40 years old, I was ready to start going through my
Mhm.
my documents and seeing what was written about me. And I got really angry about the abuse that I endured while I was in foster care.
Okay.
So, my schizophrenic mother, who beat me regularly,
Okay.
I had never had a nightmare about her. But the foster parent I was placed with, and it wasn't physical or sexual abuse, it was a completely emotional and psychological abuse that
Mhm.
she subjected us to.
Mhm.
I've had nightmares about her my entire adult life,
Okay.
or to this day, I wake up crying.
Uh-huh.
So And I was just outraged, and I wanted some sort of recourse, some sort of something to validate that what happened to me wasn't right. And I reached out to lawyers, I reached out to the state, I reached out to counties, and basically got the same feedback that it's too late, there's nothing that can be done.
Oh,
And that's when I started writing. That's when I said, okay, I can't get repercussions from an external source, but
right.
I can share my story. And in Unbroken, probably the longest chapter is regarding that foster parent. And
Wow.
in the book, I refer to her as the witch from hell, except
Hmm.
with a B, and
Okay.
she's TBFH
Hmm.
in the book. I never give her a name,
Yeah.
because there is so much hurt, pain, and rage that I still feel surrounding her. Now, writing was very cathartic, very
Mhm.
healing,
Okay.
very traumatizing.
Right, I can
And
imagine.
if you or any of the listeners ever decide that they want to share their story,
Hmm.
I only recommend it if you have a fantastic support network in place. Your therapist, your
Yeah.
psychiatrist, your family, friends, whatever system you have, because the brain doesn't differentiate between trauma that happened 40, 30,
Hmm.
20 years ago and trauma that's happening right now, present day.
Uh-huh.
So as I was writing, I was reliving it. And I
Wow.
am like an expert level at
Hmm.
repression and repressing emotions and feelings, and really just shoving it down. And
Yeah.
writing about it forced me to take each trauma and relive it, re-experience it. And it was incredibly difficult,
Uh-huh.
ultimately very gratifying and very healing, but
Mm.
very difficult.
No, I'm just wondering too, did you have any practices during your writing process that you would do to like just come back to yourself or like, yeah, just to heal and be able to, get through those heavy moments though? Did you do anything that really helped you to get through that? Because I can imagine that being heavy, like even though it's because myself too, like I know these stories I carry, but like when you reopen these stories, it has like this different impact as well. So yeah, what did you do to take care of yourself as you were writing?
Oh, absolutely. I
Mm.
had to do things.
Okay.
Getting outside,
Okay.
whether it was just being in the sun. I'm a
Hmm.
sun baby. I'm in Texas, so
Okay.
I love the heat. I
Okay.
love being by the pool. Going for a walk, going to work out, just something to deal with the pain and the anger that was coming up, that was resurfacing. Also, music is
Mm.
incredibly big for me, and I have to be very careful what I listen to
Okay.
because it will guide my emotions. Like there are certain songs, Johnny Cash's Hurt.
Mm.
I can't listen to it.
Yeah.
It just takes me to a dark place.
Yeah.
So after writing, I would put on hip hop, upbeat,
Hmm.
positive music just to kind of lift me out of that space, that headspace that I was in.
No, that's beautiful. As you're talking, I'm reminded of this powerful quote that one of my previous guests said. She was saying that like being vulnerable is very brave, and you never know what your story will open up for someone else. Like maybe it will help them find the courage to face their own, past or realities or whatever. But was there ever a moment when you felt like your story would have like an impact or be really powerful for other people?
So my definition of success will
Um,
be if I truly, profoundly impact one person's life. if
okay,
if
that's
my
beautiful.
if my book makes that difference, and
Hmm.
it's a big ask,
Hmm.
because true change it is not easy.
Uh-huh.
But if I can do that for one person, then
Hmm.
I feel like I will have fulfilled
Yeah.
part of my purpose. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I know that you've also shared statistics, and I'd love to talk more about that. So you've spoken about the statistics surrounding foster youth. For example, the fact that fewer than 3% attend college. So how do those realities shape your understanding of the system that you were growing up in?
mm. So there are some other just shocking statistics. So the college
Right.
thing,
Mm-hmm.
what makes that statistic truly abhorrent is the fact that when you're a ward of the state, when you
Mm-hmm.
graduate at 18 out of the state's custody,
Uh-huh.
your college or vocational school, it doesn't have to be university. It can be a trade school, is completely free. It's
Okay.
free if you
Okay.
go to public, state, university, or
Oh, okay.
vocational,
Okay.
and less than 3% of foster kids are taking advantage of that. And it costs nothing. In
Wow.
fact, once you take advantage, once you take some
Uh-huh.
semesters of college,
Okay.
it's good for the rest of your life. Like I can go
Wow.
back to school
Okay.
right now, public state university, and
Uh-huh.
it would cost me nothing.
Wow. Do you
So
think that people aren't aware of that though?
I don't think it's an awareness
Okay.
problem. I
Okay.
think we are not taking care of foster kids the
Right.
way that they need to be taken care of. And here are some other statistics.
Okay.
So 7 out of 10 girls who
Mm-hmm.
graduate from foster care, so 18, they get out of state custody,
Okay.
they will have a child by the time they are 21.
Oh,
70% of
wow.
females have a
Okay.
child by the age of 21. And then, so the US prison population, I think we have 5% of the world's population and
Mm-hmm.
20% of the world's prison population.
Wow.
Out of that prison population, 1 in 5 or
Uh-huh.
20% are former foster kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. No, I didn't know about
So
that.
we are taking kids who are damaged.
Right.
They've gone through trauma so bad that
Mm-hmm.
they've had to be removed from their home
No.
permanently. And we are not giving them the tools and the resources that they need to succeed. They need therapy. They need life
Right.
skills. They need positive role models and examples and some sort of intervention
Uh-huh.
when it comes to children having children.
Right.
Because when those girls have those children, and it's not just one by
Mm-hmm.
the age of 21, many have multiple.
Okay.
And I've mentored youth. I've worked with kids in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that sat with me was the fact that they just need to be loved. And if that
Right.
means having a child who will love them,
Uh-huh.
they do that.
Yeah.
And what they're not realizing is they're just starting that cycle that we were talking about, that generational
Right.
trauma all
Right.
over. They haven't had the role models, they
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen the healthy communication skills, parenting skills. They don't
Yeah.
have those behaviors, those examples. They don't know how to do it. And they're having children and it's just starting all over again.
Yeah.
Those children are going back into the system and it
Right.
just starts all over.
You bring up a really important point that I'd love to talk more about, but how do you think we can break through that generational traumas? Because as we spoke a little bit, before the recording, I went through a lot of trauma growing up, and now that I'm a parent of a 10-year-old, I'm thinking like I want to do things differently, but I think it comes to a point where I'm too lenient on her and she like walks all over me and then people are like you gotta be more strict, but it's just like I think I had the opposite. I'm like I don't want to do that, but it's also because like I felt like I didn't know how to do parenting differently, so I don't know. It's just like how to, do it. So yeah, how do you think we can like break through that generational trauma and like I guess do better for the next generations?
I would say first, we
Uh-huh.
have to be kinder to ourselves as
Okay.
mothers.
Okay.
We didn't have the examples.
Yeah.
So we have to look to other sources for role models and women to emulate. And also just the fact that you are consciously making a decision to break that cycle, to
Mm-hmm.
not put your daughter through what you went through. That's
Right.
huge. That's
Yeah.
huge. And you should give yourself tremendous amount of credit
No, and thank
because
you for
it is
that.
very
Yeah.
hard. I have a 20-year-old daughter.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's what
So
I think too, like how to, still not let her free or anything, still trying to discipline her, but not in that same sense. I think that's what I'm like trying to figure out, like, what works. And, I think we're trying to figure it out with each other too. And she's so funny though. She's like this really rambunctious kid, but she's also very sensitive and she's always been really in tune to my emotions. So even though I'm not actually yelling and I like just kind of like get a little upset, if she drops something, she'll say something like, "You're always yelling at me." Like I'm not, this is not yelling. But I think just that how to have that kindness, but also like having that discipline, I think that children do need growing up though.
So, with my daughter,
Okay.
when she was 14 and told me that she was struggling with depression and
Okay.
anxiety,
Okay.
I immediately reached out for help because I
Okay.
struggle with depression and anxiety my
Okay.
entire life from the age of 15.
Okay.
Mental illness is in my family. My grandfather was schizophrenic. My mother was schizophrenic. My cousin is
Hmm.
schizophrenic. So I have been hyper aware
Yeah.
of her emotional state. And when she told me that,
Yeah.
I didn't mess around.
Yeah.
I immediately got her help. And one of my regrets is that we didn't do family therapy. I think
Okay.
that could have been beneficial for us in our situation.
Okay.
Um, she had a therapist, she had a psychiatrist, but she's 20 now, and it's like we're finally having the relationship that I had always hoped for,
Okay.
where she'll come to me and talk to me.
Hmm.
But I've just done the best I could.
Yeah, no, and that's wonderful that you did recognize that and yeah, just getting her the support that she needed and just going back to foster care. So when people hear the term foster care, they might also have assumptions. So what do you wish that more people understood about what children in that system actually experience?
So I don't know this statistic, but the
Okay.
majority of foster parents,
Mm-hmm.
from what I've seen, from what I've experienced, they're in it for a paycheck. They don't have a vocation or
Okay.
a skill. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they're um, not only do they're not plumbers, electricians, they don't have a trade or a skill, they
Mm-hmm.
haven't been to college. This is their income. This is their career,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not treating it and we're not treating it. We society, we the caseworkers, we are not treating it as
Mm-hmm.
such. And
Okay.
they do receive training, and they do have the caseworker who checks on a child once a month or once every
Mm-hmm.
3 months. But if that's their job, if that's their vocation,
Mm-hmm.
and we are giving them damaged children who
Mm-hmm.
need help, let's
Yeah.
prepare them appropriately for that. So that if you're going to treat it like a job, you have
Mm-hmm.
to be trained like it's a job.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
that's one thing that I I wish was different among so many things that need to change. Our caseworkers, the turnover is incredibly high. They
Wow.
have a ridiculous number of kids assigned to
Yeah.
them. The burnout rate is through the roof. A caseworker stays 3, 4, 5 years max, and then they're out.
Wow.
So we're getting inexperienced caseworkers
Okay.
because we overload them. We don't give them the support. We're not training the foster parents appropriately, and we're not getting the kids the help that they need.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're failing on many fronts, and children are supposed to be our most precious
Right.
resource.
Right.
So we have to do better by them. I mean, they're ending up pregnant with children or in prison. That's just
Yeah.
not okay.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And I'd love to go back to your story too. So, as we've spoken before, like you've overcome so much through your life. So what helped you go from like surviving to thriving, or do you feel like you've ever been able to like make it to like thriving in your life?
Yes,
Okay, I'd love to hear more
yes.
about that.
Um, Having my daughter,
Okay.
it was the triggering
I
event
love
for
that. Yeah,
me.
same with me too.
She at she was the reason I got my life together. So I
Yeah.
did go to college, I did graduate.
Hmm.
Um, but until I had her, I was making very poor life decisions. And having her, I was married
Uh-huh.
to her father, but it really forced me to have a career
Hmm.
instead of just a job.
Okay.
I wanted to be a role model for her as a
Uh-huh.
strong, independent woman. I wanted
Okay.
her to see that I did not rely on a man to support
Okay.
us.
Hmm.
And that's one thing that I've always stressed with her. Whether you want to be a hairdresser or a
Hmm.
lawyer or a doctor, teacher, that's what she wants to be.
Okay.
Um, that as long as she can support herself and live the lifestyle that she wants to live,
Uh-huh.
then I am completely good with whatever she chooses. But and if one day she chooses to be a stay-at-home mom
Hmm.
and raise a family, I fully accept that as long as it's a
Yeah.
choice and not something that she's forced into because she has no alternative.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And, just in my perspective, I think that healing is rarely linear. I think for me, when I was younger, I was like, oh, hopefully, I'm going to heal one day. Like, you get a cold and you actually get better after taking medications or something. But for me, I don't know what it's like for you, but I feel like healing is going to be a lifelong journey for me. And, even right now, it feels like there's ups and downs. Sometimes it feels like I go backwards, but it's just that journey. So I'd love to hear from you. Like, what was that? How has that healing journey been for you in your life?
Very similar.
Okay.
Very
How
similar.
so?
I completely agree. It's going to be lifelong.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever going to come a day where I say, ta-da, I'm
That,
healed.
I know when I was younger, I was hoping for that though. I was hoping for a magic pill to just like be like, I'm better. Yeah.
I've realized that that's not very realistic for me
Yeah.
in my life.
Yeah.
And but I haven't stopped trying to heal.
Mhm.
Writing Unbroken was
Uh-huh.
part of my healing journey. I also recently completed, are you familiar with TMS, transcranial
I actually
magnetic?
started that. Is it the with the summit
Yes,
on your head? Yeah, I tried it a little and then I had some like insurance issues and I had to stop. But yeah.
I did the full
Okay.
36 treatments.
Wow. Was that
So,
helpful for you?
um, it's had a very bizarre side effect whenever I see someone crying on TV, even though like I'm not connected
Oh,
emotionally to
really?
them, I
Okay.
cry.
Wow.
I
Okay.
think so. My insurance has a required wait period, but I think
Okay.
I'm going to go back and do
Wow.
more. And I'm also going to look into EMDR. I feel like I've
Hmm.
gone as far as I can with talk therapy.
Right.
I don't feel like that I'm going to gain anything further from that.
Right. No, I've
But
done EMDR before. It's helpful.
really,
Hmm.
oh,
Well, it depends what. I think I might want to try it again, but it's really I don't. And my therapist right now is talking. I don't know if you've heard about like brain spotting too, but yeah, just feeling like connecting the physical to like what emotional memories that we have and everything. It's really fascinating, I think.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, my next step is EMDR,
Okay.
and I've looked into like the psilocybin, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm ready for that, but
Wait, what is
um,
that?
the not hallucinogenic, but
Oh, okay.
the
Yeah, like
yeah,
like psychedelic therapy. Yeah,
yes,
I'm actually interested in that myself. Yeah, because I don't know. I've heard like, microdosing or whatever, but I love that though. And like what I mean, I'm sorry if you mentioned this earlier before, but what helped you like get the help that you need? Like, yeah, how did you even get like mental health services? What helped you to, yeah, make that step
sure.
for yourself?
So, when I was 13 in foster care, they did the first psychiatric evaluation on me.
Okay.
And I had dysthymia, which is the
Mhm.
precursor to major depressive disorder.
Okay.
And I actually include this psychiatric evaluation at the end of my book, at the end of
Okay.
Unbroken.
Hmm.
They point out several things that were absolutely true,
Oh,
that my depression would likely worsen, that I would probably want to look into medication. And when I was
mhm.
15, I was put on medication for the first time.
Okay.
And it's been something that I knew I've needed. Now, when I was first diagnosed and first put on medication, I had a very bad reaction.
Hmm.
I felt like I was damaged, that I was defective, that I
Right.
was broken. And it took somebody sharing with me that when you undergo significant trauma, repeated trauma, it
Right.
does physical damage to the brain.
No, I've heard about that too, especially
And
childhood trauma.
mhm. And your brain, my brain,
Hmm.
stopped producing the happy chemicals.
Oh, okay.
So I like to compare it to a diabetic who needs
Right.
to take insulin. My body doesn't produce the happy chemicals. I experience too much trauma. My brain will
Right.
probably never produce these chemicals, and I will probably always have to provide them to my body. But do
Yeah.
we judge or shame the diabetic for needing insulin? No,
No.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same thing with my mental health and
Right.
medication. That's how I
Yeah.
feel about it. The my body doesn't produce it.
Right.
Why should I be ashamed or embarrassed of something that I
Yeah.
have no physical control over?
Right. No, no.
So,
Actually, what you bring up, it reminds me. I think one time, I don't know, it was a psychiatrist or doctor brought it up to me, but it just like, I'm just like really hard on myself, just kept pushing. And he told me, like, you got to look at your mental health as being like, if you came in with a broken arm, like, why
mhm,
you wouldn't force yourself to do all this if like you had a broken arm. So I think that's what I've learned in my own journey too, especially with like invisible disabilities or mental health, like how we carry through. And I think for me, like having that same gentleness, because I wouldn't look at
mhm,
a person with a physical disability, or if I knew that they had invisible disability, I wouldn't, push them too. But I feel like I wouldn't look at other people in that same like harsh criticism and judgment that I have toward myself.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel
So
like you and I are very similar
yeah,
on
no, I
many
like,
things.
when you were talking too about like crying, like after, because I think that's something that I really wanted to, because I don't know if you've experienced this, but like I felt so much intense emotion that I just went numb, and it helped me like get through the sad moments. But the thing is, like, I couldn't feel happy in the happy moments either. Was that the same
Mhm.
for you too? Like
Yes.
I like when you said that, I kind of felt like this, like, oh, I wish I could cry, because I feel like I'm still kind of at that like just monotone, steady, like not, yeah. I want to get there though. I think, start to actually feel those emotions. And yeah, I think I got to a point like I'd rather feel that pain and the sadness, like, than feel nothing at all, because, it also means that I don't feel happy during like joyful moments though either.
Right. Right. I have a disconnect
Yeah,
between
me
my
too.
emotions
Right.
and reality, what's going on in reality.
Yeah.
They're not always connected.
Yeah, no, I'm the
So,
same way too. Yeah, I think they tell me I disassociate a lot.
mhm.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to. But thank you for sharing this too. And I'd love for you to speak directly to the listeners for those who might resonate with your story. So for listeners who may still be in the middle of their own trauma or recovery, what message would you want them to hear?
Just keep going.
I love
Just
that.
take one step and another step and
Yeah.
another. Just just keep going.
Hmm.
And you have more power and more control over your life,
Oh.
even if it's a teenager and they're not in full control of their life.
Hmm.
They're in control of how they perceive things, the decisions that they make, whether you're going to self-medicate or not.
Right.
Drugs, alcohol, are you going to numb yourself?
Hmm.
And that decision that you're making today directly impacts the life that you're going to have tomorrow.
Yeah.
So keep going and acknowledge the control that you do have.
Yeah. No, I
Those
love that.
those are my
No,
messages.
that's really beautiful. And going back to your memoir too, I'm curious to hear, was there a chapter or moment in the book that was especially meaningful for you to put into words?
So it only goes
Mm-hmm.
until probably 22.
Uh-huh.
But the experience that I shared at the beginning, where
Okay.
I felt that serenity, that peace,
Right.
that knowing that there is a purpose for me on this earth.
Yeah.
Um, so my prologue is my suicide attempt with the gun, and
Okay.
the epilogue is the resolution of that evening in the psychiatric ward, and really feeling that the trauma that I had endured
Mm-hmm.
forged me into something that was stronger, harder,
Wow.
and able to come through the other side. That what I had been through was that there was a reason behind it. It wasn't random.
Oh.
And that I don't know if chosen is the right word,
Mm-hmm.
but I've gone through what I've gone through for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's made me who I am today.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So when readers finish Unbroken, what do you hope that stays with them?
the hope, the
Okay, I love that.
resilience,
Yeah.
the fact that my forward opens with an entreaty to just
Uh-huh.
take those steps, and it ends with me reconciling with my mother after
Uh-huh.
a decade of not seeing her, and it's wonderful. She was medicated, she was housed, she was doing very well. I got to see her thriving
Wow.
and living a life that I never could have imagined for her. And I didn't need her to be my mom anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't need or want that from her. But I got that resolution of
Mm-hmm.
knowing that she was okay, that she
Mm-hmm.
was doing phenomenally well in her life. And it closed a chapter for me, and it closed the book.
Okay, I love that. I'd love to talk more about hope. So, you said that you're not offering rainbows and sunshine, but rather hope. So, what does hope look like in the context of your story?
It is an understanding the
Okay.
what you're going through has purpose,
Mm-hmm.
that you are being forged, just like a metalsmith. This is the analogy I use in my book, how the metalsmith puts the metal into the fire and hammers it and then goes into the water and then just goes through that process over and over, ultimately making it stronger, more
Okay.
durable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the analogy that I use for my life, that those
Yeah.
traumas that I went through, they were preparing me for
Okay.
my future and preparing me to have a life that, frankly, I never dreamed I could have. I am so blessed
Yeah.
and so grateful. And if you had shown the 15-year-old Adrienne the life that I have now,
Yeah.
she would have called you a liar. She wouldn't
Right.
have believed it was possible. But it is possible. It
Yeah.
is. And my life isn't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I the hits kept on coming. I mean, I was widowed at the age of 35. I got rheumatoid arthritis. I'm medically
Uh-huh.
disabled at the age of 35.
Okay.
My daughter lost her father when she was 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
So it's not that life became all of a sudden perfect.
Right.
It's that I'm prepared for it and I'm able to have joy
Mm-hmm.
and happiness in my life.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And as you're talking to, I'm reminded. So actually, I've also had to be hospitalized for different reasons. And yeah, I think something that really stuck out to me is that they were saying like, just life has its ups and downs, but if you die now, you don't know how many good things are still, ahead of you. Like there's still gonna be those bad moments, but just imagine those good moments that you still have. And like you were saying too, like, if I died during my suicide attempts too. Like I would have never known that I would have this like little girl who I absolutely love and adore. We do bicker, but it's just like how much joy and I'm sure you could relate to as a parent, just
Yes.
like having this little being that you're taking care of. And yeah, I'm like she makes me so happy. And yeah, if I were to die like before she was born, like I don't know, I just like I couldn't just imagine, just life without her. And I'm grateful that I stuck around so I was able to experience that too. But yeah, that's one thing that I really learned too is like you just keep going because once you die, that's it. But you
You
don't know what
lose
else is
the
coming up.
opportunity for
Right.
happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. But beyond the book, how are you hoping to continue advocating for survivors and foster youth?
So I definitely want to get involved with foster youth again. I've been consumed with writing Unbroken. So I
Okay.
definitely want to get back into that world. And because I have my case file,
Uh-huh.
I'm actually creating a companion text. So I've
Okay.
got the firsthand account of the trauma, and
Mm-hmm.
then I have the clinical perspective. And I hope to have my books used in classrooms
Mm-hmm.
for those social workers, caseworkers. I've
Okay.
had two interns, now therapists, tell me
Wow.
that Unbroken was incredibly helpful in helping them understand childhood trauma and what it's like for a child as you endure it. Both of them gave me that feedback that it helped them immensely. So
Wow.
I feel like I am not done with this journey,
Yeah.
whether it's being a speaker at events, conventions, conferences for people in the therapy,
Mm-hmm.
psychology, or psychiatrist community, or caseworkers, juvenile workers.
Yeah.
I I just feel like I don't know exactly what it looks like,
Okay.
but I think there is more to my journey ahead.
Yeah.
I hope so.
No, no, I know. And like just talking with you, you've given hopes to so many people, but I'd love to know what gives you hope right now.
Mm. Um, I am just so blessed. I have
Okay.
an incredible husband.
Hmm.
My life, while imperfect, it's imperfectly perfect. I
Hmm.
am so blessed to have the life that I do. And from that last suicide attempt,
Yeah.
I've always known that there was a purpose for my life.
Yeah.
So that's given me the resilience and the hope to keep going and to continue looking for different avenues to continue
Hmm.
healing,
Right.
to look to provide a voice for those that are currently voiceless by
Right.
speaking with you, being on podcast appearances,
Hmm.
sharing my book, really just advocating for those who maybe right now aren't
Right.
able to advocate for themselves.
Right.
So,
Right. No.
um,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And, just in my own experience, I know like especially in moments of like trauma, adversity, or chaos, like it's easy to feel alone or even lonely. So if someone listening today feels alone in their story, what final words would you want to leave them with?
So, um, you are absolutely not alone.
Okay.
We continue to go through it. I
Hmm.
still experience, I still have recurring bouts of depression.
Yeah.
I'm not magically healed or fixed. That to reach out if you're feeling isolated or alone, there are so many communities now, podcasts such
Yeah.
as yours,
Hmm.
the communities on Facebook, social
Okay.
media, and we are we still have a long way to go as a society
Hmm.
about normalizing mental health struggles,
Yeah.
but we have come quite a ways, at least from my grandparents' generation.
Right.
So just reach out.
Yeah.
We're here for you, and anyone who needs to reach out to me, I'm available at Unbroken Caldwell. That's my website. It's my
Hmm.
social handle. I will absolutely respond. So.
No, I love that. You bring up an important point too. I think it's really good to see like people in our generation or like maybe, younger folks too, like seeking out mental health services. Because I feel like at least folks that I know, like older generations, is still very stigma. Like, why do you need someone else to help you? Or like even my parents, I feel like they don't get it. They would say things like, "Oh, are you still talking to that woman? Why are you talking about our stuff?" But I'm just really glad that people are getting to a point where like mental health is more like I more normalized, I think, as you mentioned, than like it might have been in the past. So, yeah, I really hope that people can continue reaching out for the services that can really help them in their journeys.
And don't let other people's stigmas or
Right,
biases
right. Yeah.
deter you from getting the help that you need.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for your time. And, I had such a wonderful time talking with you. You have such a beautiful and powerful story. And I hope that your story can reach as many people as possible. But I know you brought this up a little bit before, but I just want to see, are there other ways that listeners can learn about more about you and find Unbroken Life Outside the Lines? Other ways that people can connect with you if they want?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So my website, I have posted my case files until I
Okay.
get the companion text
Hmm.
finalized. Um, you can reach out to me there. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn,
Hmm.
Insta. And anyone who goes on my social media,
Hmm.
I put my phone number, I put my email address. I'm available, and I do respond to people.
Yeah, no, and I'm
So
sure that means a lot to people too, to actually know that you respond. So that's really wonderful.
hope so.
Okay.
I hope someone takes me up on it.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's wonderful. And I hope through this conversation people can like, just learn more about you and want to connect with you more. But, again, thank you so much. And I wish you all the best moving forward. And I truly hope that we can stay connected in our own journeys of healing though.
Me
I
too.
think I
Me
think people
too.
really need to stay connected and for us to fill that web of support too. And I love how you're, making that you're that support for other people and I hope that you're getting the support that you need as well.
I am. I am.
Okay.
And I'd love to stay connected. And I should mention
Yeah.
the book is available on Amazon.
Okay, perfect. No, I definitely want to check that out too. But yeah, thank you again. And, I hope that you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, no, of course. Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for being here and tuning in to Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community. Your presence in this movement matters. If today's conversation moved you, share it, talk about it, and keep the work going. Together, we're not just imagining change, we're making it. Until next time, stay bold, stay grounded, and stay in the fight.